Hi, this is Neha,
And this is Atiq.
and we are back with a new episode and a new book.
And by chance, if you're wondering why we've dressed up formally today, it's because today is our special Women's Day episode.
And we are celebrating all the women today. And my son wanted me to dress up to the occasion, so I did. But I thought, how can we celebrate a woman's life if we don't celebrate everything around her? So here we are, both mother and son, celebrating this special day.
So, are we discussing about any books today, or are we just celebrating Women's Day?
From our last episode, I've realized that there are certain topics that your generation is just not interested in, like spirituality, meditation, inner engineering.
Yeah, kind of.
I figured that out from last episode. So here is the deal.
What?
From now onward, I'll bring all these topics in disguise.
Meaning?
I will bring all these topics in the garb of something that is cool for your generation.
And what is that?
Every week, with every book, I will also bring an important and relevant topic to talk about that we need to discuss as mother and son.
A mom will be a mom.
Absolutely. I think not talking about such important topics like meditation, inner engineering, and spirituality is so skibidi.
What? Wait, where'd you learn this from?
What do you think? I've not watched that Australian senator's video.
Okay, so you watched that video?
Yes, of course. I don't see any problem in learning Gen Alpha lingo. I think it's pretty sigma to learn something new. But rejecting anything because your generation is not evolved and experienced enough to understand something, regardless of how relevant and evolved science meditation is actually being CEO of Ohio.
Oh my god. How many words did you learn?
Much more than you can think of. But let me tell you a secret. Even my generation, when we were as young as you guys are now, we used to think that meditation is pretty boring. But as we experienced life and got evolved and progressed in life, we started to see value in it. And started to understand what our parents used to teach us. So let me tell you, it's not generation, but your inexperienced age that's telling you that it's not cool. But when life will happen to you and you will experience so many things in life, you will start seeing value in it. Exactly as we did. And that day you will become real Sigma.
Oh my god. Before my mom learns all these Gen Alpha words, can you just tell me which book we're discussing today?
Okay. On this Women's Day special, we are discussing We All Should Be Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie.
Okay, and what's the relevant topic for today's discussion?
Can you guess?
No, you tell me.
Today's relevant topic is feminism.
Okay.
So tell me, have you heard of the word feminism?
Yeah,
So tell me what it is all about.
I have a vague idea of it, but I'm willing to learn more about it.
Okay, so can you define feminism?
I believe it has something to do with the equality of genders.
Yes, you're right. It's the apt term. It's about equality of all genders, nothing less and nothing more. Nowadays, people have distorted and misused the term feminism according to their own personal convenience. But as a mother, I want you to know what feminism is all about. And I must tell you, I would teach the same thing to my daughter and nieces about feminism, what I would tell to my boys and nephews.
And which is?
That this world will become a much better place if we treat all human beings as equal.
But I thought this isn't an issue anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly was my fear.
What do you mean?
Just because it's obvious for you, that doesn't mean it's obvious for all of us.
Can you elaborate?
The time and era you live in, the situation you might see around you, might be advocating the idea of equality, but that's not the case with everyone, everywhere.
So, are you trying to say that there are places where women aren't treated equally?
Yeah. It's been a fight for centuries for women. A movement called Seneca Falls Convention started in 1848 and where women fought for equality at home, at work, and most importantly, right to vote. And 72 years later, they got the right to vote in 1920s.
Yes, I'm aware of it. Can you expand on inequality at work?
Inequality at work means if a man and woman both are equally talented and skilled at work, then gender should not be a consideration for growth in their profession.
So is gender still a factor?
Unfortunately, that has been the case with women. That women bosses are not taken seriously despite the fact that they are equally skilled. It's changing. We as a woman have come a long way. So many generations have fought for themselves. Then we have reached here as women, where you have started to see women in top positions in corporates. Numbers are still less, but we will reach there eventually.
From where look at it from, everything looks fair.
Yeah, because you have not experienced life in practical world. As a child, you are sheltered and not exposed to the realities of world yet.
Really? I see equality at home and school. I've never come across a scenario where my father is more respected than my mother, or even any of my female teachers are more respected than the male teachers, or vice versa.
Yeah, what you see now is just a work in progress by our previous generations.
But don't you think it's irrelevant for today's generation?
From where you are placed in life, that might be the case, but there are so many parts of world where women are still fighting for basic rights of equality, like so many villages in Asia and Africa. For example, the author of this book, Chimamanda, she's from Africa, and what she experienced while she was growing up was inequality. And when I was growing up in small town in India, I also experienced inequality at home, in society, at workplace, everywhere. And still it's prevalent everywhere. But to understand that, you need to experience life. Because patriarchy still exists in our conditioning. It's so nuanced and layered. What you see at the surface might just be a garb of equality. But deep down within, inequality still exists in all of us. The conditioning of patriarchy is so deeply rooted in us that it's difficult to remove it in just few years. It takes centuries to do that. And the thing is, most often we ourselves are very unaware when we are enforcing inequality to others. And I include women here too, because we as women treat other women with inequality because most often we are not even aware of it.
Can you give an example?
Okay, I'll give you an example from the book, okay?
Okay.
An American woman who took over a managerial position from a man, her predecessor was considered a very tough go-getter. When she got the position, she was a little kinder than her predecessor. But within few weeks, she disciplined one of the employees for forgery on time sheet exactly as her predecessor would have done. The employee complained to the top management about her being aggressive and difficult to work with. She got backlash for something that her predecessor got praised for. So if a man is tough, he is being ambitious and disciplinarian. But if a woman does the same, she is aggressive and insane. Let me give you one more example. There is a woman who has the same degree and same job as her husband. When they get back home from their work, it's the woman who does most of the household work. So that's true for most of the marriages. Let me give you a few more examples so you can recognize patriarchy in our conditioning and in our life in small things that you must have seen before but never thought from a female point of view.
Okay.
An American woman who has a high paying job in advertising, She is one of the two women in her team. Once at some meeting, her boss ignored her for the comment that she made, and later he praised the similar comment when it came from a man. When a father changes the nappy of his own baby,
Yeah.
a mother says thank you to her husband because he's not expected to do so. But a mother changes a nappy 10 times in a day and she never gets thanks because it's expected out of her. There are so many layered, nuanced examples that when you see things at peripheral level, they all seem fine. But when you see deep within, it's complex and flawed like most of us.
Yeah, I agree.
Such is life. Experiences help you get aware, but it's the strength of your character that
Yeah.
helps you evolve. Just because you see things, that doesn't mean you understand them. And just because you understand things, that doesn't mean you can change them. Because change is not easy. Change makes you uncomfortable. And you have to go through a lot of pain to change.
Yeah.
And most of us want convenient way out. And because change is difficult, so we normalize wrong things in life.
So what's the solution?
Solution is that we need to change our own conditioning first before we start changing the world. So live life mindfully so that we can be fully aware if we are enforcing inequality on others or if we are becoming the victim of inequality. And I'm still trying to unlearn so many lessons of gender biases.
How can we bring change?
By being right. Don't do wrong and don't take wrong.
It's a blanket statement. Can you explain?
With pleasure. One more thing about patriarchy is that it tells a woman or a girl to be liked. It's not absolute though. Boys are also told in their young days, but not as prominently as girls are told. I would teach you one thing as a mother. Have courage to be disliked. Don't care about what world has to say. Just care about your loved ones. If you have more than 7 people on your list whose opinion you care about, then you are setting yourself up for a life full of disappointment and sadness.
But these strengths and weaknesses of character are present in both genders. So I don't think it's necessarily a boys versus girls issue as such, but rather a strength versus weakness issue.
Yeah, that's true. But strength of character is attribute in a man, and the same thing is a insanity, stubbornness and rigidness in a woman. And weakness of character is just a minor flaw in man and characterlessness in a woman.
Can you explain?
Okay, so let me tell you. If a man is ambitious, it's a virtue. But if a woman is ambitious whose career is her priority, then it's not a virtue. If a man's career is his priority and his family is second fiddle and he is unavailable for his family most of the time, then it's just a collateral damage of the perk of having an ambitious man. But if same is the case with the woman, if her family is the second fiddle, then she's not considered a nice woman. For a woman, her family should be the first priority, not her career.
Yeah.
I'm not at all saying that this is wrong. All that I'm trying to say is that if keeping family as second fiddle is wrong, then it should be wrong for both the gender.
Yeah, you're right.
But let me tell you this, the burden of patriarchy is handed down upon to us by women too. And unfortunately, the harsh reality is that we women only set this hostility onto other women.
Meaning?
Okay, I'll give you an example from my own life. Your father is a strict vegetarian.
Yeah.
He doesn't eat anything, any cake or cookies also that has egg in it. And I eat everything. So many of female friend of mine, not just one, have said this to me that you are very lucky that your husband allows you to do so. And I find myself aghast when I see a female friend of mine saying this to me. What it reflects about us women? It reflects that this sense of patriarchy is so deeply rooted in us that we see something like one individual letting the other individual be is not a normal way to live, but a mercy given by a man to his lady. My father also didn't decide my personal food preferences for me. And who is my husband or my father or my son to decide what should be my food preferences? Do I decide my father's and my son's or my husband's personal food preferences? No, right? Then why a man in any capacity in my life would do the same to me?
You're right.
This deeply rooted sense of patriarchy in us women is so regressive that rather than appreciating an attempt of a couple who is trying to retain their individuality is not a normal thing but a mercy of a man. But I must tell you, I've never heard of this from any man in my life. I have been told of the same by so many women in my life.
So are men better than women in handling the patriarchy syndrome?
No. I'll give you one more example from my own life. So this one male friend of mine, he told me once that, Sneha, you are very strong-headed woman. You have very strong opinions and takes on things. And not just that you have a strong opinion, you also put it across in a very assertive way. And people around you find it threatening and offensive.
Yeah.
So I asked him, do you feel it threatening or offensive? And he said yes. And I asked him, am I distorting the fact or saying lie in any which way? And he says, no, you are speaking the truth. Then I asked him, am I being rude or disrespectful to you in some way? And he said, no, you are not being rude and disrespectful. Then I asked him, then what it is? If I'm not lying or distorting the fact, and if I'm not being rude and respectful also, then what it is that's offensive? And you know what he told me?
What?
That it's your assertiveness that's offensive. And I was taken aback.
Wow.
But you know what? From where I look at this man, he's not an oppressor. He's a victim of patriarchy.
How so?
In patriarchal setting, we define masculinity in a very narrow way. Masculinity is a very hard, small cage, and we put boys inside that cage. We teach our boys to be afraid of fear, vulnerabilities, and weaknesses. We teach them to mask their true self because they need to look hard. But by far, the worst thing we can do to males by making them feel that they need to look hard. We leave them with very fragile egos.
Yeah.
The harder a man feels compelled to be, the weaker his ego is. Boys are victim of patriarchy too, because if they choose to be something like dancer or chef, they don't have the luxury to do so. If a man choose to be emotional provider for the family, not a financial provider, it's not appreciated by society.
That's a really narrow way of thinking. But how did society come to this regressive thinking in the first place?
See, men and women are different. We have different hormones and different biological abilities. Women can have babies, men cannot. Men have more testosterone and in general physically stronger than women. 1,000 years ago, because human being lived in a different world in which physical strength was the most important attribute for survival, the physically stronger man was more likely to lead.
Yeah.
Today we live in a different world. The person more qualified to lead is not physically strong person. It is the more intelligent, the more knowledgeable, the more creative, the more innovative person who is supposed to lead. And there are no hormones to these attributes. A man is as likely as a woman to be more intelligent, creative, and innovative. We have evolved, but our ideas of genders have not evolved since then.
Yeah. Interesting. This conversation has been very insightful.
Okay, so what did you learn about feminism today?
I've learned that feminism isn't just about women, but also about empowering men and reducing the burden from these men. Roles can be exchanged based on skills rather than these genders.
Wow, I'm impressed. On this positive note, we bid you goodbye for today. We wish you a very happy Women's Day. To all the women and girls out there, I would like to tell you be the kind of woman who you would like to meet in your life. And all the men out there, I would like to tell you that be the wind beneath her wings. That's the most masculine thing to do. Till we meet again, live life with gratitude and keep reading.
Mama, before we conclude this episode, I'd like to say a few things to you on account of this day. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for being the rock of my Gibraltar. You're my happy and calm place. Whenever I needed the most, you were always there for me. Thank you. Always know you have a special place in my heart. I love you, Mama. Happy Women's Day.
I love you too.
And you guys, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Listen to what this woman says. Live life for gratitude and keep reading.